Welcome to the Exploring Awareness podcast. Join Dr. Frank Anderson and Lisa Berry in exploring new ways to live in this chaotic world and find peace and joy in the most unlikely places.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Exploring Awareness podcast. And we're back for another episode after our fully packed first episode from last week. Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm good. You really got me thinking about a lot of different things. We're on this journey to know ourselves, right?
Yeah.
You touched on a lot of different things in our first episode, talking about taking us deeper into awareness and why it's important to know ourselves, which made me think, why is it important to know ourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you spent some time questioning this week, huh?
Well, we'll get to all that. I mean, I thought I knew who I was, who are you and what do you want? I thought I had that all figured out. And then after our first conversation, i.e. episode 1, I thought, gosh, maybe I don't know. So we're on this journey, and hopefully you can explore along with us as we try to figure that out.
Well, and I think that's a really great question because you asked me last week, who are you? And when I kind of answered more like it was a gesture or something that I was expressing than actually what I was thinking. Remember we talked about moving through the world with kind of love or peace or joy or something like that. And so that's how I answered your question, when you asked me, who are you?
You said you can't use words to answer who you are.
Right. And it actually reminds me of a poem by David Whyte.
Yeah.
And can I share that with you?
Sure, please do.
The poem is called Tilicho Lake. And it's a poem about a lake in Nepal. I think it's the highest lake in the world. And this is how the poem goes. In this high place, it's as simple as this. Leave everything you know behind. Step toward the cold surface. Say the old prayer of rough love and open both arms. Those who come with empty hands will stare into the lake astonished. There, in the cold light, reflecting pure snow, the true shape of your own face.
Which I totally loved that. I thought it was beautiful. And the line that stood out to me was about the rough love.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Because I think it's sometimes difficult to let go of things. What strikes me is leave everything you know behind. And so you were just saying, I thought I knew myself.
Right.
And this poem is asking you to leave everything you know behind and say the old prayer of rough love. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you see the true shape of your own face. You see yourself. It isn't necessarily what you think, but it's like, wow. Once you kind of let go of some of your ideas about yourself, then all of a sudden there's something completely freeing and liberating and big about that.
Are you rebuilding yourself?
I think you're rediscovering yourself.
Rediscovering yourself.
Rediscovering your true face. What does he say? Those who come with empty hands will stare into the lake astonished. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
And how do you know when you've discovered your true self?
You'll be astonished.
I love that. I'll be astonished.
I think it's a journey. Or at least for me, and I'm still a journey. It's still a journey for everyone. So it's actually the journey, not the end. They say it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Right.
And so, you've heard that before.
Sure.
So so we're on this destination together toward this journey, and I think that there are times when you see, like, you just feel yourself, and when people are in the zone, there's something a little bit like that too. Have you ever been in the zone?
Yeah, sure.
When things are just like
Yeah, happening.
Spontaneously happening, and you're a radio broadcaster. You must be in the zone a lot.
Are we creating that ourselves, though?
Well, it's you connecting to this spontaneity, this deep kind of sense of yourself. You're not like a juggler. You know, how someone juggles. I mean, how in the world can you think and juggle at the same time? I mean, I try not overthink it every time, but someone who's juggling this.
Is that an energy, though? Sometimes I think I have to lift myself up, and I get to this place, and I'm all my intentions are good, and they're focused, and they're positive, and then the energy is moving, and then I'm grabbing onto that energy, and things start happening.
Oh yeah, well that's probably.
I'm in the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we? But so I go back to my question: can we create that ourselves? Do you have to be aware of what you're doing and how that's happening?
Well, one of the things about awareness and being in the present moment is there is a spontaneity or an immediacy of what's happening, right? So once you start overthinking it, then you kind of take yourself out of that moment. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There's something about just being present in the moment that allows that to be, who you are and what you're doing.
I think I'm an overthinker.
Yeah, me too.
You are?
I am.
Really?
I like to overthink.
Well, I was thinking that this exploring awareness would help me, at least, with that of not being an overthinker. Can it?
So right in your question is kind of an answer.
I'm overthinking by asking?
But you're being aware that you're overthinking, right? So we all overthink. And we all judge, and we all do all of those things. So that's what minds do. That's how your brain is evolved. You've got to overthink. Your instinctual brain is planning for these circumstances, planning for your success. I mean, it's natural. It's part of your biology. But the opportunity that we have as humans is to be able to look at that happening. You're able to watch it happen, and you're saying, I am creating these scenarios, I'm creating these expectations, right? And that's where the awareness piece comes in, and that's where we talked about meditation as a pilot project in the first episode. And so when you are sitting in meditation in a nice quiet room, and you can become aware of your breath and your body and your thoughts and your emotions, then when you move out into the world, that same approach can be there. But the pilot project means you've experienced it kind of in a nice quiet place. Can you do it when you're out there? And it's much more difficult, right? So we're out in the world, and all these thoughts are happening, and all of these activities are happening. Can you also stay present out there?
Right. So
you practice, you do your pilot project at home in your meditation area, and then you go out into the world. And so little by little, that perspective that you get with meditation starts following you into the rest of the day until it doesn't. And then you go back and you can just stop and take a breath and say, okay, what's the truth here? What's really going on versus what I'm thinking is going on, or what I'm expecting, or what I'm contriving in my mind.
I'm not sure I know what you mean by pilot project.
Yeah, well, a pilot means I take that out of health projects. So, let's say you wanted to do a big program across a whole health system. You might try it in a one clinic first and see how it works and iron out the details before you bring it out into a larger.
So meditation can be our pilot project?
So that's how I like to look at it, right?
Really?
Your meditation is like your because you're in a room, by yourself or with people. There's not a lot of distractions. There's not a lot going on, so you're just sitting there with yourself, which is more of an ideal situation, right? Than when you go out into the world and you've got cars and people and jobs and all these expectations and things like this that will distract your mind.
So you're saying meditation can help us with overthinking, just helping us be more aware?
So meditation helps you practice becoming aware of starting by aware of your breath, right? Then aware of your body.
Yeah.
And aware of your thoughts and aware of your emotions. And so you build your awareness muscle. You build your awareness, you like that experience like we talked about last week, you build that awareness muscle that connects you, to your deeper wisdom, your deeper self, and you bring that out into the world. So maybe next time someone annoys you, there'll be a little bit of space between the annoyance and then what you do with that.
I thought meditation was supposed to be about letting go of everything, that you're not supposed to think when you're meditating.
I know a lot of people think that.
You're saying that's not true?
That meditation is supposed to get rid of your thoughts?
Yeah, that you're supposed to empty your mind and connect to nothing, so then you can relax because you're not thinking anything and you're not feeling anything, and you're giving maybe your mind and your body a break.
Yeah, well, that's a common misconception.
Seriously?
Seriously.
You're doing it to me again?
Well, doing what to you again?
Like blowing up my beliefs. Maybe that's what we should
Yes,
call this
there we go.
podcast.
Yep.
Blowing up my beliefs.
Yes, well, beliefs. Well, we should talk more about beliefs in a minute. If you have an idea that meditation is a way to what did you say?
Like disconnect.
Disconnect.
Yeah, from your brain and your thoughts. Like it would help you from overthinking because you're not thinking anything.
Right. Well, you can't actually do that because that becomes another thought. That becomes another task. That becomes another.
Not thinking.
If you try to get rid of your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's a fool's game. That's not going to happen because what does your brain do? Your brain thinks.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to have thoughts. Actually, it's really good to have thoughts, especially
while you're
useful,
meditating.
helpful thoughts. When we're sitting in meditation, the idea is to let whatever is happening in the present moment happen. So if you start to have thoughts and you become aware of those thoughts, what happens to the thoughts?
What happens to the thoughts?
Yeah.
You keep thinking them, don't you?
Well, when you become aware of your thoughts, sometimes the awareness is who you are, and the thoughts kind of dissolve. And it's not trying to get rid of them isn't going to work.
Well, what about if you have a mantra? Isn't that the point of having a mantra? So you're just thinking like so hum, and then it's getting rid of your thoughts.
So there is a difference between kind of the mindfulness meditation that I'm more experienced with than say mantra, which I think is a form of concentration meditation. And so when people use their brains to just say one thing, or do one sound, right? And if you have a thought, you go back to your sound. You have a thought, you go back to your sound. There is a way that you can find some relief from that. If you use an insight meditation approach or a mindfulness approach, then we're not trying to get rid of those thoughts. We're allowing those thoughts to be there as they are.
You're acknowledging them?
You're acknowledging them.
But do you let them go?
Noting them. And there's a transformational aspect to awareness. Again, something that we can experience. But if you are sitting in meditation and have a thought and become aware of that thought dissolves in a way, and you're not intentionally getting rid of it. You're just shifting your perspective from you as thoughts to you as awareness.
So you're meditating, trying to relax and let go, and you're thinking, did I feed the cat this morning? And you can just let that thought go and relax your brain.
That's right, and go back to your breath. So you become aware of your, and that's when we talked about an anchor. So the anchor is awareness of the breath. So if you can become aware of the breath, that's one of your bodily functions. You can become aware of your body and all the sensations in your body, and you become aware of your thoughts because that's part of your bodily function too. That's why the breath is kind of the doorway into this.
Yeah.
And that's why we would start with a breath and get practiced at that. Becoming aware of thoughts is a little bit further down on the practice ladder.
But isn't that the ultimate goal?
It's what the ultimate
Getting
goal.
rid of your thought, letting go of your thoughts.
No.
So what's the goal?
Well, like we talked about last week, the goal is to be your authentic self.
From meditating.
Yeah, for meditating.
And I want to know, how do you know when you get there? Because I thought I was my authentic self. I thought I had it figured out, and now I'm wondering.
You are your authentic self.
Right?
I mean, you already are your authentic self.
How do you get in touch with that? By meditating.
Right.
But then, so you want to be your authentic self, so you meditate, but how do you know when you're there? Or do we ever know? Do you know?
I guess I would still have to go back to talk about the journey and not the destination.
Okay.
Right? So
it's about self-discovery and self-awareness, and what's the point of the journey if you don't ever figure it out? Am I asking too hard questions?
Yeah, so it's a hard question because it's not about figuring it out.
What's it about?
It's about experiencing.
Okay. Experiencing it. And what's the point of experiencing it?
Because in your brain thoughts come and go.
Right.
You're a young person, you're a middle-aged person, you're an older person, your brain changes, your body changes. But what is it that stayed the same throughout the whole time? And that's that connection to that deeper part, that part that's more transcendent of time is the part we're talking about connecting to.
Well, that's what you said in our first episode. You said if you want to be stress-free or if you want to be happier, it comes from your core. That's what you're talking about right now. And it's the place not affected by your thinking. So isn't that what you're doing? You're meditating and you're not being affected by your thinking and you're getting to your core and, hey, there's where my happiness is? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I thought is that like a stripping away of your conditioning or your experiences necessarily?
So your conditioning and your experiences will still be there. There's no way to get rid of that.
But if you want to be stress-free and happier...
So it's almost like taking one step backwards, and that's also in some teachings. To take the backward step. So here you are, in the midst of your conditioning and your life and your thoughts and ideas, and then we're saying take the backward step. It's almost like could you be watching as a movie?
Yeah.
What's going on? And so we get into this idea of the witness. Yeah, there isn't a separate witness because you can't find a witness either. Mm-hmm. But sometimes as a first step to kind of try to get an idea of what we're talking about, it's like how do you witness yourself? How do you stand as the witness as all of these things unfold, right? And who is the witness? The witness is this completely objective, non-judgmental place. That you're just letting what's happening happen. So now that one step back, this witness is not affected by the play. You're just watching. And so then there's this calm and there's this peace. And so everything can still happen. It's all going to happen. Are you going to be in it, or are you going to be aware of it? And so when you're all in it, you react. You're reacting to this, you're reacting to... And then from the witness perspective, there's a response. It's different than reacting. You're not being pulled by your nose all over the place. You can say, okay, I just had a car wreck. You could yell and scream and cuss, or you okay, I just had a car wreck. We got to take care of this.
I like response versus react. And is that a method? Is that a principle that's followed a lot or
Well,
advised?
in my personal experience, it's something that developed over time. But I think it's really interesting at the hospital. Let's say there's an emergency happening.
Right.
And sometimes the doctors and nurses, we have to initiate a resuscitation, So it'll look like chaos to most people. there's an organization going on, and then there's always one person sitting there that's kind of guiding the whole thing, right? And that person knows all the protocols and everything, cannot get involved, can't get emotionally involved, just is witnessing what's going on and responding to this person who might be in a very serious condition, responding by adding medications, adding procedures, adding technologies, and things like that. So it's kind of like that objective observer.
And you think that's something we should strive to do ourselves every day, whether there's an emergency or not? Be the calm observer.
I think if that's again, if people are interested in another way,
right,
and interested in going a little bit deeper, they can explore this type of practice that we're talking about, this type of perspective, and develop the awareness muscle, develop the capacity to respond as opposed to react. And in my own life, I've noticed that happening more and more every year, especially with kids. You know, it's like kids, you know, like, oh, it's so easy to react because, you know, your kid does something and you're like, oh my God, you know, this means this for them and this means this for me, and I'm a bad parent and they're never going to, you know, be successful, or, you know, they're going to get in trouble. But, you know, all of that is a reaction. Whereas, like, okay, that's a kid, you know, a kid's doing that. And, you know, see that for what it is.
So just to clarify and confirm, you're saying we can develop our awareness muscle by meditating?
I think that's a good way to do it.
Are there other ways?
Not the only way. And we talked about that last, you know, people do all kinds of practices. Being in nature, you know, can really help you just stop and be aware. You know, smelling a flower, washing the dishes.
All right, I'm out on washing the dishes, just to let you know.
Yeah, but a lot of
yeah, I know some people like it.
Who go to these Buddhist temples and you have to work. You know, you work and you wash the dishes and you do it mindfully. It's like or you know, I've been at places where you wash windows, you know, with newspaper. You ever wash windows with newspaper?
No, I have
They
not.
do that at temples.
And that's good for your soul?
It's just present. You know, it's just mindful.
Okay.
And one time I was at a retreat and I had to weed this garden, and I had to. There's certain kind of weeds, and their roots go down and they go at a right angle, and they go down and they go at another right angle and they down. And so they had us digging up these weeds all the way down to the root.
Wow.
Because these are the kind of plants, if you just pull them, it just breaks and the root will grow some more. So we had to go all the way down. And that, you know, I had a lot of resistance to that. I was like, come on.
Why?
I just thought it was, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just had a lot of resistance.
Right.
And it was tedious. It took forever. There were so many weeds to do. But, you know, it's like, okay, you get into that zone, you get into the present moment, and you just start chipping away the rocks and the dirt, and you go down and you go down, and you get the whole entire zigzag weed out, and then it's gone. The weed won't be there anymore.
And what did you get out of that?
Well, just a sense of presence, just a sense of being present in the moment, and instead of reacting with negativity and resistance, to just enjoy what I was doing.
I thought of something that you said in our first episode that I wanted to ask you about. Lisa's practical questions to Frank's wise wisdom, and you talked about going to Thailand for 10 days.
Oh yeah.
And not speaking for 10 days, and about halfway in, you suddenly heard the birds and you saw the flowers, and I feel like I already am that way. I make a conscious effort. I love nature. I love fresh flowers, and I look at trees and I see different things, and I feel like I already do that already. Mm-hmm. Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. That you're doing that. So what's the question?
I don't know. My question is, do I have to not, would it be even deeper or better for me if I didn't talk for 10 days? I mean, what am I living from a more conscious level already, or do I still need to have these experiences to see life differently?
Well, it sounds like you're able to be present in the present moment to those type of things that are happening.
Yeah.
And so that is what it is, and that's awesome. And so, do you need anything else? I mean, I don't know. Do you need anything else?
I don't know. I want to be better. I want to feel better.
Well, so you do. So you do. You do have an intention for something. You want to feel better.
And if you didn't talk for 10 days, what was that experience like for you?
It was not easy. And my wife was there too. And so we couldn't talk to each other. And so, yeah, what happens when you're just there with your thoughts?
Right.
And you're going to meditation practice, and you're sitting there, and your thoughts are going. But, you go back to your breath, and you become aware of your breath. And then you become aware of your body and all the aches, and your mind is chattering, and you become aware of your thoughts. And you go back to your breath, and you breathe, and then your mind goes off, and you think, oh, I should have done things this way, or, I'm going to do this in the future, and, you'll create all these scenarios in your brain, and it just keeps happening. And then you slowly, as you become aware that that's happening, there's a shift. Like, what is all this? What are all these thoughts doing? They're just racing through my mind, just like my breath is going. And so, yeah, it's a shift, and that's why it's an experience. It's not like something you can just wish to happen. It just happen. It's like kind of like I said before, that shade going up. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, that sense of presence is translated from the sitting meditating into the world, and so a lot of people have that already, and it sounds like you have some of that already, and you enjoy that, and that's fantastic.
Did you feel permanently changed after that experience?
There's a great book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry.
That's great.
And so, yeah, these things require, practice. That's why we call it practice. You go to a retreat, you get a taste of these things, you go back into life, things start to overwhelm, things start to cloud. A daily meditation practice is really, really helpful to maintain, your connection to presence, because it's very easy to get back in the old habits of just running with your mind and running with your, conditioning.
Do you meditate every day?
I try. I don't make it every day.
Okay.
My intention is to meditate 5 out of 7 days.
And how long do you meditate for?
For 30 to 40 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to do a meditation for us right now?
Sure.
Not a 30-minute one, but, something to get us started. And for anyone listening who heard what you had to say and wants to learn how to do it and incorporate the practice into their life, right?
Right. So I think that since we'll be doing different practices at different times, I'd like to really focus on mindfulness of the breath today.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Sounds great.
We're going to really investigate the breath and have that as a doorway to opening. So we'll do now mindfulness of the breath.
Okay.
Okay. So be in a comfortable position. You feel yourself in the room. Feel yourself in your chair. And bring to mind an intention you may have for this whole practice. Relax your body. And we'll start this awareness by becoming aware of the breath. And you'll feel your chest expanding and contracting. And when it expands, you'll feel that air is going into your body. And let's have it go over your nose. And we'll start by just feeling the air go over our nose tip. And sometimes this is just enough. You just to learn concentration, to focus on the air going over your nose tip. And you could spend 10 or 15 minutes doing that. And when you have a thought, just go back to your nose tip. But for this, I'd like to expand this awareness of breathing, and I want you to follow the air that goes past the nose, into the back of the nose, and then it goes down through your trachea, into the bronchi, and it fills your lungs up. To a certain point. It's almost when the lungs fill up, it's like a little trigger. A little spark. And then the chest contracts and the air gets pushed out of your lungs, back up the trachea and out your nose. And so for sure, your mind will wander. And you'll go off thinking some other thoughts. Or you'll make a judgment about this practice, or think you're not doing it correctly. Some people feel like they want to control their breathing when they do this. And all of those are okay, but I'm going to ask just to return to the air going over your nose and just let it happen naturally. And so as you practice this, And it takes practice. Breathing like this, breathing consciously, is this first step in discovering what's happening in the present moment. Because what's happening is breathing. And you've been breathing your entire life. Right? It started when you were born. And you took your first breath. And it's been going on ever since. Mostly without you knowing it. And today, for some reason, we are being aware of breathing. And please, if this makes you feel overly stressed or overly upset, you can definitely stop doing it and try again later. But if you feel somewhat calmer and relaxed, you may just ask yourself, why is that? And maybe this place of awareness provides a kind of silent refuge. Or an anchor. To kind of re-establish in the present moment. And this sense of peace and calm that you may feel is something that's always available to you. You see, it isn't a thought, it's a state of being that you can return to anytime you want. And the more you practice, the more familiar you will become with this part of you. That's just there waiting to be accessed. And so whenever you want to return to this place, you can always stop to take some breaths. Be aware of the breath. And see how that works. And so let's just end by taking 3 deep breaths and then opening our eyes.
I like that meditation helping you discover the awareness of the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Do you see how we could call it a pilot project or practice?
Yeah, when you mentioned it, when you explained it
Mm-hmm.
in your terms. Yeah, no, it's a useful tool. Can I call it a useful tool?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And it certainly makes a difference in how I feel. And I know a lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't shut off my brain. Well, it's not easy. I admit that. Is it easy for you at this point?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been doing it for a while.
Well, since it's not really shutting off the brain, but it's being aware that the brain is active and having that perspective.
Okay. Well, this has been the Exploring Awareness podcast. Should we mention our Facebook page?
Sure, we have a Facebook page that you could visit, and we also have a page on patreon.com where people could visit and help support the podcast so we can get some equipment and maybe get a studio to rent. And
we don't have to do this in our car anymore.
And also participate in a community of
yeah.
other folks that are interested in exploring awareness.
Well, thank you for everything you have brought to the conversation, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I really enjoy our journey.
This podcast is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice, nor does use of this information establish a physician-patient relationship. Listening to this podcast does not replace medical consultation with a qualified health or medical professional to meet the health and medical needs of you or others. If you are having problems, please see your primary care provider or your local mental health professional.